All right, we'll go ahead and get started. Morning, everybody, and thanks for being here. My name is Mark Toussaint. I'm the supervisor of the small commercial program in New Hampshire and Massachusetts for Eversource, and also the municipal program in New Hampshire. Happy to be here with you this morning. I've been in this space for quite a while, 17 years with Eversource, and about 30 altogether working with small businesses in New Hampshire. I've really found it enjoyable and fulfilling. So for today's session, we have a Q&A feature. Just look for that Q&A icon. You'll be able to open that up and put that in your chat. My friend Pat Owens is in the background, and he'll be feeding those to me at the end of the presentation, and we'll have that discussion. So looking forward to having those questions coming in from you. So real quick, what is NHSaves? I know Chris just spoke about this. We're a collaboration of 6 utilities in New Hampshire. That's 4 electric utilities and 2 gas utilities. So Eversource is electric, Liberty has electric and gas, New Hampshire Electric Co-op is electric, and Unitil is also electric and gas. And we work together to operate these programs under a unified brand to help our customers get a consistent experience across the state and access all of the energy efficiency programs and products that they can. So today's agenda, we'll do a quick overview of the small business and municipal programs. We'll talk about turnkey options for customers, so designed for ease of use and kind of a low touch option for the customer. We'll talk about our customer directed option for those customers who want to hire their own contractor and run their own project. We'll talk about instant incentives, where you can work directly with distributors and get your incentives applied right at the sales counter. And we'll talk about our municipal programs that help reduce taxes and reduce energy costs in our cities and towns. And then finally, we have a section on the various financing options that the utilities offer here in New Hampshire. So our small business program was designed really as the core program started in New Hampshire. And the purpose of it, it recognizes that small businesses have unique needs and challenges. The biggest one, I think, is time. With the businesses that I've worked with, they just have a lot to do, a lot of different problems to solve every day. And while they might want to look at energy efficiency, it might be something that falls down on the priority list on a daily basis as things break and employees come in late, and any of the number of challenges that face a small business owner throughout the day. The other piece is funding. A lot of small businesses are, in effect, jobs for their owners, and our projects compete with many other priorities in terms of funding priorities. So a lot of times they get put on the back burner because funding isn't available at a given time. And when you add time and funding together, finding the perfect time to do an energy efficiency project gets very difficult. And then the third is expertise. A lot of them, if you're running a restaurant or a bowling alley or a barbershop, chances are you don't have an energy efficiency expert on staff. You might not have even been exposed to the conversation around the technologies. So you might not be aware of what's out there. So our goal is to aggressively work to reach those companies and then do everything we can to make things easy for them so that they can access the programs with very little lift on their part. They can continue doing their day-to-day jobs and improve their building and improve their finances as well. So we offer 4 main types of assistance to small business customers. And if you go to one of the other sessions for large commercial, for instance, you'll see that these are similar because they get all of the assistance that large commercial gets, plus a couple more things that I'll cover. So the first is technical assistance. We can look at your whole building. If you have just a general question about, I'd like to use less energy in my business, we can go in and look for a pretty broad range of measures that can help you save electricity and natural gas. We can look at comparisons of specific equipment for you. So if you're thinking about buying a new piece of machinery and there's a couple of different options and you're wondering whether the energy efficiency upgrade is worth it or not, we can take a look at that for you, help you figure out how much you'll save, help you with some incentives on that, and help you make a good choice for the years to come. And then we can also investigate specific problems. We often have customers call and say, I can't figure out why this piece of equipment is using so much energy, or I can't figure out what's going on with this piece of my production. We can go in there with engineers and help troubleshoot that for you. And that can be very valuable to companies. We like to do a whole building approach, but often customers are interested in troubleshooting specific issues, and we're happy to do that with you. Second is equipment incentives, and that's really what people often think about when they think about our programs. So we have a pretty wide range of incentives that are designed to help defray the cost of energy efficiency projects. So if you just need a little nudge getting over that hump, you just need a little bit of help to get it done, we can help do that through a number of ways that I'll cover through this presentation. We also offer education and training to our customers and to contractors. So if you check out NHSaves.com, we have a training calendar on there. So you'll see any upcoming webinars and training sessions that we participate in. Some of those we deliver ourselves, some we bring in outside people, others we just partner on, but you'll see all of that listed on there. Could be certification courses for workforce development. It could be focused on specific technologies that you might have in your building. So definitely go on and check that out. And then my friend Mike Laughlin will be presenting in the next session about our new buildings program. And under that program, we do plan reviews for you. We can do design charrettes where we bring everybody together and talk about how to incorporate energy efficiency into your building plans. And then we have, of course, incentives that are based on the performance of your building compared to energy code. So who can participate in the programs? In New Hampshire, the way that we define this, we look at it at the meter level. So if you have a number of different locations in New Hampshire, we don't aggregate those. We look at your individual facilities. And the customers would be non-residential accounts. And that would include, we get this question a lot, can churches participate? Can nonprofits participate? Yes, they can. So anyone who's not a residential account is considered a commercial account. And technically that includes our towns and cities as well. I'll talk about that a little bit later. But so it would include towns and cities, nonprofits, churches, businesses, anybody who's not a rate R within our billing system. And then the limit is under 200 kW in electric demand, which would be maybe a small manufacturer, might be a restaurant, bakery, could be a little store. We have a pretty wide range of customers that qualify. And then over 200 kW, we do have programs for you under our large commercial initiatives. And then on the gas side, you would, a qualifying customer would use less than 40,000 therms of natural gas per year. So who can participate in terms of contractors? That's a lot broader. We have pathways for really anybody to participate. People call me all the time and ask how they get qualified to participate in New Hampshire Saves as a contractor. Good news there is that you are already qualified. If you're a contractor doing business in New Hampshire, you are eligible to access these incentive funds and to work with any of our customers in a number of different ways that we can offer. I'll talk about all of those as we get through. So there's no need to, for most programs, no need to enroll or get any kind of permission. We don't have to okay you working with them. You just find the customer and work with them, and we don't interfere with that relationship. We have a new contractor hub at nhsaves.com/contractors. That'll show some of those trainings that I talked about. It'll talk about how to participate in our different programs. We're just starting to build it out, so it's not complete yet, but I think it'll be a very good resource for you in the coming weeks. So just like in our large commercial programs, our eligible measures are really anything that will save electricity or natural gas cost effectively. So we would look at, we sometimes will do an engineering review to make sure it's worth the investment in the project. But the measures that we tend to do are, we do a lot of lighting controls, variable speed drives to help control motors in your facility. We have a huge refrigeration program. We can do HVAC measures, both heating and cooling. We have programs that will address kitchen equipment if you run a restaurant. So there's a ton of opportunities there in the back of the house. We can do some thermal measures depending on your situation. So gas, you certainly could do thermal measures. And then on the electric side, if you're electrically heated, we could do insulation and air sealing and things like that. And then we do custom projects. You might have something that doesn't fit into our cookie cutter programs that would save energy. An example is we do a lot of snow guns with our ski areas. We've done injection molding machines, things like that, where it wouldn't be something that we would do every day, but we can do an engineering review. And as long as it makes financial sense for both of us, we can help you with those measures. So now I want to talk about one of our delivery methods, and that's our turnkey programs. We often get customers who call us and they just say, I don't know any electricians. I don't know where to start. I don't know what to do in my building, but my bill is too high and I need some help. And so we've designed these programs for ease of use. And so all the customer has to do is let one of our vendors into the building. Vendor comes in and does a free assessment, and customer reviews it with them, and they really just need to sign and okay the job. We provide, in that case, we've hired the vendors through a competitive RFP. We do that every 3 years. We provide that utility oversight so that if there's an issue with the vendor, we can help them mediate those problems. And then those vendors can deliver any measure that we have on the program, including those custom measures. So anything that you could do through the other programs, you can do through Turnkey. It's just a little bit easier delivery method for us. Talk a little bit about the process there. So the customer intake can happen either from a customer initiated standpoint, meaning they call us and say, I need some help, or the vendor might be out marketing, knocking on doors and meeting customers on their own. So the vendor would do, once they've met the customer, they would do a free assessment for them. They would look at all eligible measures. In a lot of cases, they can look at electric and gas at the same time if you have both. They would review a proposal with us and with the customer. And once everybody agrees on a course of action and on a cost and everything, customer agrees to move forward with it, the vendor would work with us at the utilities to arrange financing if needed. Not all projects need it. Some customers choose to just finance it on their own, pay out of pocket. But we do have several measures for financing projects if we need to. And then the vendor would go ahead and install the measures. Once the measures are installed, we pay the vendor after we inspect the project, make sure it's done. We pay the vendor, and the customer just pays the remainder either through out-of-pocket funding or through financing. And then after the fact, if there are warranty issues, the vendor takes care of those. They work with the manufacturers and with the customers to make sure that the warranties are all met. They do cleanup and disposal of all the old materials. They really take care of start to finish project for the customer. So how can contractors work with our turnkey programs? You can become a lead vendor, and that opportunity, typically speaking for Eversource, that comes around about once every 3 years. We do a competitive RFP. What I emphasize to people on this is that you do need to support all aspects of the program. So you really need to have a sales organization. You need to have pretty good IT capabilities. You need to have ample funding to be able to carry projects through to completion, good, strong logistics, and data management. So that's a big piece of it. So it's not just installation, it's really full end-to-end program management. So if you're not interested in that, you could become a subcontractor to one of the lead vendors. We're looking for all trades to do that. And you arrange your pricing and your payments through the lead vendor. So you're working for them. So you wouldn't be working for Eversource. We would not mediate disputes between the subcontractor and the lead vendor. But there are a lot of projects going on that you could be involved with if that's the type of work you'd like to do. Now, most of our projects historically have actually been done by local electricians who knew the customers either through town or through family connections, or they've just worked for them for years. And we absolutely welcome those jobs. We do most of our jobs that way, and we have a couple of different ways to work with you. In the past, the contractor would have been stuck with figuring out all of our paperwork and figuring out how to submit the projects. What we've done to make that easier is we've created at Eversource and Liberty anyway, we've created a system where you can go to one of our contractors and that's there just to support CDO, and you submit your paperwork to them. In my case, at Eversource, it's Willdan, and for Liberty, it's Franklin Energy and Rise. And so they can they can essentially submit your project for you. They can calculate the savings, they can calculate the incentives, make the incentive offer with you. So they really streamline that process and make it so that it's easy for you to use and easy for you to access. So it's not something you need to learn new systems or new procedures. You can focus on your sales and your installation, and this vendor does the rest. At New Hampshire Electric Co-op and Unitil, they handle that feature in-house with their own staff. They do a great job with it, and very similar service, but it's done by utility staff. So under this customer-directed program, the utility is not, the contractor is not working for the utility. They're working for the customer. So we don't get involved in that relationship. The customer's hired you as the contractor, and so we don't provide oversight over the work or schedule or results. Sometimes a customer will call and complain, and we say, you need to talk to the contractor that you hired. Pricing, payment, all of that is between the two parties. We're there to offer incentives for a completed energy efficiency project. So we ensure that that's done, and then we go ahead and pay either the contractor or the customer. And this is that process kind of mapped out. You would engage the customer and send us a proposal, us or our contractor. We would review that for making sure the equipment is eligible, making sure that we're saving energy with it. Customer would then review our incentive offer and accept the entire proposal. You would then go ahead and do the installation on your own without any involvement from us, and then you would just notify us when it was done. We would go out and possibly do a verification with a third party just to say, hey, they did what they said they were going to do. The equipment is working. We're good to go ahead and pay them. And then we issue payment. Typically that comes within 30 to 60 days of project completion, and that allows us time to do those inspections that we need to do. That payment can go, again, to anyone that the customer designates. So they can take it themselves, or they can send it to the contractors, or they can send it anywhere they want. So instant incentives. So this is a new program we launched. Well, it's probably a few years old now, where if a customer knows exactly what they want to do and they know what they need to buy, they can go right to the distributor and they can buy that from them, and the distributor can apply their incentive directly to the sale price at the counter. So you do no utility paperwork. You don't even have to call us. Most customers don't when they're doing projects this way. Anyone in the state can participate, any size customer. And the implementation of this program can be a little bit different between utilities. So you just want to talk to your utility to make sure you understand how it works. But your distributor will be able to tell you that as well. It's a really easy program that makes it makes our energy efficiency incentives much more accessible to people. A good example would be a property manager who needs to move really quickly on fitting out a tenant space. Perfect for them because they know what they want to do. They go in, they buy the equipment, they get their incentive applied right there, and they're off to the races. And so we don't slow them down. They don't need to report to us on anything. The only thing they might get is they might get an inspection after the fact. We do inspect a sample of all jobs just to protect the integrity of the program. So here are some of the measures we do with the instant incentives. It doesn't include anything custom. We would have to look at that in person. But LED lighting and controls, we do a lot of business with our lighting distributors. They've been great to work with. HVAC equipment, kitchen equipment, and a pretty wide range of gas measures. Most of our lighting and HVAC distributors in New Hampshire, in fact, I think all of them now, participate in these programs. So if you call them, they should know exactly what to do and how to help you. And if you have any trouble with those, you can call us. You can also see a listing, excuse me, a listing of full measures and all of the distributors that participate at NHSaves.com. So that's up there now. You could take a look at it and go from there. So this is just very simple workflow for that instant incentive project program. So you do all of this independently. You scope the project with the customer, figure out what you want to do, what you need to buy. You purchase those at your distributor. When you talk to them, you say, I want those instant incentives, or you might call them midstream incentives. They apply the incentive right to the sale price, and then you install it. We might come out and see that customer after the fact, and as part of accepting that incentive, the customer agrees to that. So we just go out and say, okay, yeah, they told us they put in 52 lights. We see 52 lights, we're good, and the customer never has to talk to us again about it. So very easy to use, and I encourage you guys to check that out for those measures that I mentioned. So we do have a very robust municipal program. We have since 2010. We've always served our municipal customers, but in 2010, there's a state law that was passed that created a specific budget for municipal programs. In New Hampshire, the statewide budget is about $2 million, which might not sound like a lot, but remember that municipal customers are also commercial customers. So if we did spend through that $2 million, we would then just flip those projects to our commercial budgets. So we've never turned away a municipal project for lack of funds. Some of the things we can do, municipal projects run a little bit differently than commercial projects. We end up needing, in a lot of cases, they end up needing to present at multiple town meetings and get votes on those. We can support that either through data preparation with you or incentive preparation. Sometimes we go to those meetings and assure the municipalities that this is a real deal, that we are willing to offer the incentives that are being offered. We can provide technical assistance in reviewing projects or in auditing buildings, finding opportunities. We do have on our custom programs better incentives for municipal projects than we do for commercial. It's just a structure of the law that created the program. And then we have specialized financing options, which I'll talk about in a minute. So the eligible measures are pretty much the same as our commercial programs. We can do all the lighting and VFDs, HVAC and refrigeration. You'll see that in your schools, kitchen equipment in the schools. All of that stuff in custom projects we can do for our Muni customers, and we're happy to do that. The thing that's different about the Muni, on commercial, I mentioned we can do any cost-effective gas or electric project. So those are the fuels that we're able to work in by state law, that defines our programs, right? So on the municipal program, because it's funded by a different budget, it's funded by the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative, that's a climate change program. And therefore that brings in eligibility for oil and propane projects. So we can do insulation and air sealing, all kinds of thermal measures in municipal buildings that we couldn't do in commercial buildings. All right, so our financing program, we have a few different options. I'm going to focus mostly on EverSources, but talk to your utility about how theirs works. There are some flavor differences between the utilities, but we all offer something for all customers to get financing for their projects. We tend to give pretty generous incentives, but sometimes the customers can't fund the rest of the program on their project on their own. And so we're there to help with financing on those. So those options range from low interest to no interest. Some of ours are on your power bill, and some of them are third party. I can say we don't do loans just to do loans, right? So we only do them in support of energy efficiency projects that we're participating in. So if we're not offering an incentive on it, we're not going to do a loan on it. But anything that you are getting incentive on, we're happy to help you with a loan. And then just talk to your utility about the details on those. And I'll speak about EverSources examples. We have a small business on-bill financing program. It's a revolving loan fund. And with that program, we can do retrofit projects that are up to $20,000 in loan value. It's structured so that your savings should cover your loan payment. So if you were paying us $1,000 a month in electricity before the project, and we get you down to $800 a month with the project, you save $200. That becomes your loan payment through the life of the loan. After the loan is paid off, which is typically a couple of years, you keep all the savings from the project for the rest, for as long as it lasts. So that's a good way to get these projects installed without a whole lot of impact on your budget. It's intended to be either cash flow neutral or slightly positive. And we often get people so that they are slightly positive on these arrangements. And again, your payment just ends up on your electric bill. So you just keep paying a bill that's similar to what you're paying today anyway. Secondly, we have NHF for those loans that are over $20,000. That's a third party. It's a nonprofit that does kind of shops third party financing, and they specialize in energy efficiency financing. They arrange funding through one of these third party lenders. And then we offer an interest buy down to get you as close to 0% as possible. We do use some of your incentive, what would have been your incentive to do that. So it's like paying down points ahead of time on your mortgage. So we pay down that interest, and you get either interest-free or very low-interest loan for your project. Pretty easy option. The difference, you do go through a formal credit check with that NHF option, so just be aware of that. But as long as that goes fine, then you're eligible to use that, and we're happy to do it. And then thirdly, for our municipal customers, we have Smart Start. That is very similar to our small business on-bill financing, where the loan is structured so that your savings pay for the loan payment. So you should have a neutral electric bill, or a little bit, or you might go a little bit cash flow positive. But what we do is reduce the incentive by about 10% in order to take that loan. And the terms can be a little bit longer than the small business one, because the customers are a little bit more stable. You know, your town library, your town high school probably isn't going away anytime soon. So very, very low default rates on those for us. So they're safe loans for us. So we're willing to do some longer terms on those. Those are structured especially so that they work within New Hampshire's laws, so that municipalities are very easily able to borrow from us and get these projects done with very little budget impact, or if any. So at this point, I'll take any questions that anybody might have. Hey, Pat.
Hey, Mark. Great job on the presentation. So please, if you go down to the bottom of that Q&A section, if you have a question, please ask away. One did just come in. Is it possible to receive 100% incentive like in other states?
It's a good question. So a lot of customers have facilities in New Hampshire and Massachusetts. I can tell you, we did some 100% incentives during COVID, which was a period of economic emergency, right? People weren't letting contractors into their building. They were a lot of our customers didn't have customers because their restaurants were closed or their stores were closed. So they didn't have any money to spend. So we were doing 100% incentives at that time. I will say very rarely a custom project will end up at 100% of project cost. We can't go over that, but sometimes we've seen a couple of projects that work out that way. But for the most part, we don't do 100% incentives in New Hampshire. We do very few 100% incentives anywhere anymore now that COVID's over. But it's a little bit, it's a smaller budget for sure in New Hampshire, different legislative goals for the program. And that leads us to lower overall incentives. But we still have pretty generous incentives that should cover a large portion of the project cost.
And then there's still the option to finance to get the rest covered. So, okay. Next question that just popped in. Can a contractor be paid directly from a utility on a CDO project, and how is this done?
So we've moved all of our CDO activity for small business to speaking for Eversource, being processed by Willdan. So I'll use Willdan and Rise and Franklin as a substitute for the utility, and that's my answer. But yes, the contractor can be paid directly for the project as long as the customer directs us to do that. So we see the money as belonging to the customer because the customer pays their system benefit charge. And so the incentive goes to the person who holds the electric account or the entity that holds the electric account. They can assign that incentive anywhere they want. So once they've done that, once they've agreed for that incentive to go to you as the contractor, we're totally fine cutting you that check.
And another question about CDO: do contractors working with a customer using the CDO option have to be vetted by the utilities?
No. So that's a service we offer through our contracted vendor program, through that turnkey program. And so if you're going through that turnkey program, we've done background checks, we've done credit checks, we've done a competitive bid process, and we take some responsibility for the results. If you're using CDO, the customer has indicated, I want to do this pretty much on my own. I want to hire my own contractor, manage them. And that, in our eyes, includes any vetting that you would do. If the customer hires the contractor directly, they're welcome to do that. And we're absolutely happy to work with them. We actually do most of our projects that way. But the customer would end up managing all aspects of that relationship, including the vetting and any background checks and anything else they want to do.
And our next question: if a customer asks me about financing, do you have a flyer or a link on NHSaves about information?
We have some information on there now. We'll be updating that pretty soon. Your best source of information for financing is to go to your individual utilities, because as I mentioned, over the years, as these programs have developed, each utility has a little bit different financing option. We all do have financing, but I wouldn't want to speak to the details of how, say, Liberty or Unitil was offering funding to their customers on the financing end. So you'd want to talk to your utility representative, and in the lobby, you'll be able to download a program directory. So you'll be able to see who those utility representatives are. They would be able to walk you through everything, all the details of their financing programs. And I could certainly do that for you for Eversource.
And we are waiting for the next question to come in. I have a question while we do it. With the municipal sector being funded by green communities, does that mean that we could also do heat pumps to displace those oil and propane projects?
So we can do heat pumps in New Hampshire. And in fact, if you do a heat pump in a commercial building in New Hampshire, that opens up the option to do weatherization, because you're now an electrically heated building, right? We also do heat pumps in municipalities. The difference between New Hampshire and Massachusetts that you mentioned, in New Hampshire, we don't get the program doesn't incentivize fuel switching, say from oil to electric. So when you do a heat pump, you're looking at the difference between a less efficient heat pump and a more efficient heat pump in terms of how the program is structured. So the incentives are going to be a little bit lower in New Hampshire than in Massachusetts. But we absolutely do heat pumps every day. They're getting more and more popular. I see them everywhere I go in terms of some people are using them for spot cooling and heating, sometimes primary cooling and heating. They do work in New Hampshire, even though it gets colder here. I've got one in my house. We heat almost entirely with that. So we do them all the time, and it opens up some weatherization options that we wouldn't otherwise have had.
And I don't see any more questions coming in at the moment. So feel free, if you have a question, please enter it in. All right, it looks like, oh, here we go. Is the increased incentive for the HEP program for switching from electric resistance to heat pump apply to commercial buildings as well?
I'm sorry, Pat, say that one more time.
Is the increased incentive from the HEP program for switching from electric resistant heat to heat pump apply to commercial buildings as well?
So for heat pumps in New Hampshire, we just have prescriptive incentives. So it doesn't exactly matter whether you switch from electric or oil or gas or propane. Um, I'll say we have a lot fewer resistance electric heat buildings in our commercial space than you might think. Most of those have already been converted to another fuel just due to cost. So where we do see them, we do encourage people to convert to heat pumps as soon as they can because it's a lot more efficient, often 3 or 4 times more efficient. And we can offer the incentives to do that, but it's not an enhanced incentive depending on which fuel you switch from. So we do, just to add on to that last question, this is a small business section, so I was answering for the commercial sector, but the incentive for switching from electric resistance to heat pumps in the resi space is enhanced in New Hampshire. Thank you all for attending. It looks like we are at time. I encourage you to attend the next breakout session. We also have a collaborative session later on that you can join and speak to utility staff and have conversation there. And just check your lobby for that schedule. And thanks again for joining us. Thank you.